Anyway, yes, a very, very warm welcome on this lovely evening. Thank you for forsaking the warmth and the new sunshine. But for myself, Monica Bohm-Duch, and the director of Insiders Outsiders, working in partnership on this talk, and indeed on many others, with the Association of Jewish Refugees, and indeed Susan Harrod, who's been helping this evening, is a representative of the AJR. So, as many of you will know, the Insiders Outsiders Festival was a year-long live nationwide arts festival, primarily devoted to paying tribute to the extraordinary contribution paid by refugees from Nazi Europe to this country's culture. But as a sort of natural sequel, if you like, or an offshoot of that project, which is very much alive and well in online, sort of form at the moment, of course, is my sense that it's really important to give the voices of the so-called second generation a chance to be heard. And as some of you will be aware, often on a Monday, but not always, as today, of course, is a Thursday, I've been inviting members of the second, indeed sometimes the third generation, to talk about their family's experience. In many cases, it's an artist in the family that the descendant is talking about, or equally, as in this case here with Evy Cohen tonight, it's a creative artist who is going to tell us about her family history, but also tell us about the work that she has done in relation to it. So it's going to be a wonderful event. I'm very much looking forward to it for starters. So let me just begin with a few household tips. We all know the ropes by now. I think you are all indeed on mute, whether you like it or not. And if you would put your questions or comments, anything you might like to contribute in the chat function addressed to me. Again, I think it is automatically set to do that. And that just means it's less of a distraction to our speaker. Also, if you wouldn't mind, I think, turning off your videos so there's less visual distraction on the screen at any one time, that would be good. We are recording the event, so again, you may not wish to be seen anyway. What else? I think all pretty straightforward. Speaker view, you probably know, is probably the best option to go for. And it just remains for me now to tell you a little bit about Evy. As many of you will know, she has been in the news recently in the wake of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh's death at a very ripe old age, as we're all aware, as a descendant, a direct descendant of the eminent Greek-Jewish Haimaki Cohen family that was given sanctuary so bravely by Prince Philip's mother, Princess Alice, in her Athens residence. But I pricked up my ears, I'm an art historian, my interest is very much in the creative responses to history, and both family and collective. And when I heard, and I think there was a passing mention in one of the press pieces to the fact that Evy was a visual artist, I did a little bit of homework, and I thought her work looked really interesting, and I contacted her, and much to my delight, she has indeed agreed to talk not just about that, the public story, but her very personal responses to the broader family history, and indeed even broader issues in that, displacement, loss, trauma, and all the things that we grapple with. So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll hand over. She's a visual artist, but actually only fairly recently, and Evy, I'd love you to say perhaps at the end, yes, a little bit about your earlier life and what brought you to the visual arts. She's now based in rural France. It sounds like a wonderful, tranquil part of the world. Her work since 2002 has explored the creative potential of two media, which don't often go together, but in many cases she does actually combine them. That is to say, photography and glass, often in combination. She's exhibited widely, really almost since the beginning, since 2013, and is the recipient of several international prizes, and I won't go into detail there. She has a wonderful website which you can check out for yourself. It's easy to find online. Her elusive and poetic work has entered private collections in many parts of Europe, and indeed in Britain as well, Germany, France, Switzerland, and the UK. And a famous photography museum in Chalon-sur-Seine in France, as you can guess from the name, has recently acquired her livre de Souvenir, which is a wonderful piece, which Evy herself will be talking about today. So I think without further ado, Evy, I would like to hand over to you. I will be operating the PowerPoint, but Evy, over to you first.
Well, thank you very much, Monica, for inviting me. I'm very grateful that you are giving me this opportunity to, first of all, again, honor the memory of Princess Alice. and my parents have done it in the past. I believe it is my turn to do it now, and I hope that there's another generation that will continue to keep the memory alive of Princess Alice for her great deeds. Just my English, I am French. I have studied in England, but that was a very long time ago. So my English can be quite rusty. And also I might look for words because emotions are here and I'm not used to giving conferences or talks. So please be aware of that. It is indeed an important story that I want to cover here. A quick presentation to the extent that the story that I'm going to tell you is from a direct, because my father lived it, and he has. I have some audio recordings that were done in '85 with my brother Patrick, that has also passed away. And there are documents and memorandums that my father did for Yad Vashem for the recognition of Princess Alice as righteous among the nations. So I will be talking through those documents and not inventing, hopefully, things. Someone contacted me recently after having heard of our story, of my family story. And he wrote something that's very interesting, and I think I will read this out to you as a starting point. When memory becomes history, everything can start over, and the worst is yet to come. The only way to ensure that history is not lost is to make a memory of it. So we will try and do that today. Let me introduce you to Princess Alice. Most of you know of her or might have heard of her through The Crown. This is a book, I have it slightly cut. I don't know if other people have it cut, Monica, but it's only on the side, on the left side.
I think it's fine. It's certainly fine on my screen, so don't worry.
Okay. Hugo Wirth did a biography of Princess Alice in the 90s, I believe. Alice was born in 1885 in Windsor Castle. She was the great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria. And she was soon identified as deaf and learned to lip read very quickly. She was a very clever young person, and later on also in life. In 1905, she married Prince Andrew of Greece. He was the youngest son of King George I. So she moved to Athens. During the First World War, she was a field nurse. She got very involved with the soldiers and helping in the medical. And she had 4 daughters and a son later on, the only son later on that was born in 1921. And he was born in Corfu, and it was Philip of Edinburgh. The Greece has been during those periods at the beginning of the 20th century till the Second World War, in fact, under various turmoils, political turmoils. And in the 20s, the family had to go in exile, or the royalty had to go in exile, and they went to exile too. And she moved with her family to France, to near Paris, where I believe that she was quite happy. She learned French. But she had a very unhappy marriage. Prince Andrew was, I don't think, a very interesting man, to say the least. She developed health issues. She became quite mystic. And at a certain point, her mother decided to have her taken care, health care, cared, and was put in psychiatric institution. She separated from her husband. Prince Philip was sent to England, and it's her brother, Lord Mountbatten, that took care of Philip and got his education. She managed to get out of hospital, and in 1938, she went back to Athens without her husband. I mean, they really were separated. He lived in the south of France. We had in Greece, at the beginning of the Second World War, there was enormous starvation, because I think, by the way, I'm not a historian, so I won't cover too much of that. There was a lot of starvation. So she devoted herself to the poor and the sick. I can't say that word, sick. And started soup kitchens. She worked for the Swedish and the Red Cross. I think that she even went, she had no money, by the way, of her own. And I believe that she even went to Sweden to obtain some funds to create the soup kitchens. After the Second World War, as I said, she had become quite religious. She founded a religious nursing order. And in 1967, there was a coup in Greece, a dictatorship, and Prince Philip and the Queen did everything they could to get her out, and they even sent out, I believe, a plane. And she lived the last 2 years of her life at Buckingham, and in her wish, she wished to be buried in Jerusalem. We have a photo of the next one is a photo of her with the children, with the 4 girls. I forgot to say that the girls got married while she was hospitalized, and they all got married to German officers who were Nazis. I believe that Sophie, the youngest one, was her first husband got killed at the end of the Second World War, during the Second World War, and they had turned against the Nazi regime. The next photo we have is a photo of, I believe it's in France, of Philip and Princess Alice. And what else do we have next? I don't remember. Yes, so that gets me now to talk about quickly my family and why somehow we got this extraordinary story of Princess Alice saving my family to the risk of her own life. This is a map of Greece, where I'm showing the main cities or villages or towns where there were Jews. I still have, on my side, I have a grossed up map. It's not full size. And Trikala that you see in the middle is the town where my father was born. Yes, it's still complete. My great-grandfather, Evy Cohen, was from Larissa, which was a very small town. And he was born in around apparently 1825. And as a young man, he moved to Trikala, which was then considered quite an important city. Salonika at the time was still under Ottoman regime. And so he moved to Trikala, and he was a hawker. And from being a hawker, he became an important businessman. He created a bank. He built commerces, and he was also in the agriculture. And my father, in his in the audio recordings that I have, mentions that even in the 1970s, there were people in the Trikala that would mention my great-grandfather, Evy, known as Yako, as being an amazing man. He was extremely respected by the population. There was a small Jewish population of some 200. I never know whether it's families or people. I can't remember that. But he was respected by the whole population. My grandfather, Haimaki, was born in 1871. And he took over from my great-grandfather the business. He married Rachel, that was from Salonika, and they had 5 children. First my aunt, Tilde, then Elie, then my father, Alfred, and after that, Jacques and Michel. There were 5. On various occasions, the King George the First came to Trikala. On one occasion, it's because there had been an important flood, and he wanted to come and see the population and show his what's the word?
Sympathy, maybe?
Maybe, thank you. That's the right word, the sympathy to the population. And because it's quite a long way from Athens, Trikala is by the Meteorus, by the way. It's a beautiful region. And so they had to, they stayed at my grandfather's house because it was the best one of the town, which could accommodate them. And we have here a photo. The next one is a photo. Yes, for me, it's still cut. That's good. It's moved. It's still cut completely for me. I hope that it can be seen for the other ones.
I think it's fine. Don't worry.
Yes, we have the king on quite on the left, and then you have my grandmother, Rachel, Prince Andrew next, just above, and then my grandfather Haimaki and Evy Cohen, the great-grandfather, completely on the right. For the little story, I believe that my grandfather is 2 steps above my grandmother because he was shorter than her. So we have another photo showing also on another occasion, the king, that was in 1912, and then we have two of the children that were also on the steps of the photograph. So from paper clippings, I think that you say that, newspaper clippings, it is mentioned that the king often would come and visit my grandfather. They enjoyed having discussions on religious affairs, interestingly, and Judaism already. And so they created a relatively good relationship. In 1913, during the Balkan Wars, Salonika, which had been for centuries under Ottoman ruling, Salonika was known as the Jerusalem of the Balkans, and Salonika had over 70,000 Jews living there, and the Jews made up for more than 50% of the town, of 50% of the people of the town, which is, I think, the largest, to that extent, city in the European part of the world. So when Salonika came under the Greek sovereignty, first of all, George I was assassinated in Salonika in 1913, and his son Constantin first took over. My grandfather Haimaki was asked if he would go with his family and live in Salonika and help with the Jewish community because the Jews of Salonika were afraid that they would lose some of their liberties, their commercial capacities, because Greece was mainly a Greek Orthodox country. And so he played, to that extent, he played an important role in Salonika. There were unrests, and he ran also for the first parliament in 1913, and he was elected. I think we have a photo of that too. Yes, he was elected at the parliament. He was also very involved in communal affairs, I think you say, and institutions. However, they had to return to Trikala because of the political unrest, and they only returned in 1917 when they remained in Salonika till the Second World War. Haimaki accompanied the chief rabbi to audiences with the king and also with members of the government. So this gives you the background to the relationship that was developed in a way with the royalty, or I would say with the political environment. So now we come to the war. Yes, this is the last photo of my grandfather, Haimaki. So the war, Salonika is under German siege. First of all, there were the Italians. And so the family moved from Salonika to Athens in 1941. And Athens was still under Italian ruling, so they were quite safe until September 1943, when Mussolini's regime fell. And so the Germans took over also Athens. By that time, there had been the mass deportation of Salonika. 55,000 Jews were still probably living in Salonika at the beginning of the Second World War. They were taken to the death camps of Auschwitz and Birkenau. And according to records, 42,000 men, women, children were immediately taken to the gas chambers. This is not the story of my father's family, thank God. I have to add, just in the meantime, that on my mother's side, she was Sheps. Her father was David Sheps. He was the youngest of 16 children. The eldest had left to Poland at the end of the 19th century and had obtained that his youngest brother came to Switzerland to obtain education. Those that the family that remained in Poland that had not migrated before, they were all massacred. So in early 1943, Haimaki dies of illness, and the family needs to go into hiding. My father was a young lawyer by then. In the records and the documents, my father does say that overall the Greeks have been extremely helpful with the Jews, whether it was the partisans that had taken into hiding the families and children, whether it be the police that gave false true identity papers, and the clergy were also extremely helpful. However, so a lot of Jews had moved to Athens, and they needed to find hiding places. Those with families, it was more difficult. Some had also found ways of getting out of Greece through Turkey. However, the boys wanted to do the same, and they wanted to join the Greek free forces that were in Cairo. However, they needed to put in safety my grandmother Rachel and Tilde, my aunt. They had found various hiding places, and in the end they thought that they had really found the right one, which was in a farm outside of Athens that was held by three old ladies. The husband had been connaissance of my grandfather. However, one day, after 2-3 weeks of thinking that they had found the right place, my father is told by his best friend that the best friend had overheard a conversation whereby someone was asking about the Cohens because they were quite well known. What was happening to them, they were worried for them, and the other person replied, "Don't worry about them. They are safe, and they are at the Chrisakis farm." So that was the end of their hiding place. It was too dangerous. They had to find another one. And by pure coincidence, my father sees a car driving in Athens with the flag of the royalty. And so he was astonished because he knew that the royalty had left Greece, and they were, I think, then also in exile. And he inquired, and he was told that Princess Alice had returned to Athens. And so he says in the memoir that he did for Yad Vashem, he says, on a sleepless night, I found a solution. The ladies will go and stay with the princess, and we, the boys, will leave and join the free forces in Cairo. So he gets the whole family together in the morning, and he tells them, this is what we're going to be doing. And they all thought that he was crazy, which was, I mean, quite frankly, quite true, because by that time, Princess Alice didn't know them, and probably hadn't remembered that maybe she had stayed once in Trikala at their house. And so the next question was how to get in contact with Princess Alice. And there they knew of a lady who played cards with Princess Alice. So they contacted her. She said that she would gladly be the go-between, that she would get back to them in 3 days' time. So, and they had an appointment somewhere in Athens. And so my father says, and this I will read to you, if I may. I will put my glasses on. It's the extract from the memorandum for Yad Vashem. On the day we were due to receive news, my sister and I went to the road near Prince George's residence, where Princess Alice was staying. My sister was wearing a veil to prevent anyone from recognizing her. She was stopped by a lady, Mrs. Sofoulis, the wife of the former prime minister, by the way, that they knew, who was coming down the path on the opposite side of the road and wanted to find out what was happening to us. My sister took the opportunity to explain our situation. At that moment, the door that we were standing near to opened and a lady came out. Mrs. Sofoulis introduced us and said that she was Mrs. Delignani, her best friend, and that it was her who could put us in contact with Princess Alice. For us, it was an absolute miracle. In short, Mrs. Delignani was on the palace grounds, and an hour later, we were informed that Princess Alice would be more than happy to take in my mother and sister. Princess Alice couldn't believe how coincidental it was. She had just given a negative response to the other lady, fearing that she might not keep the secret. The princess didn't know how to get in contact with us, to let us know of her true intentions. So this is an absolute miracle, because there they were in the small street where normally no one normally passes by. And there is Mrs. Sofoulis, whom they had seen 3 days before, in fact, because they were trying to find out how to leave Greece afterwards, which is another part of the story. And there comes this lady who is the right person to make it happen. So that same evening, my father takes in his mother and sister. The princess put at their disposition a small apartment on the 3rd floor of her residency. Sorry. And she had taken she had taken the precaution to let her staff know before they arrived, that a former nanny of her children and her daughter would be staying with us. That's what she told them. And that they were people who were under threat of Hitler's regime, and the two special guests should be taken care of. Clearly, if she doesn't say that they are Jews, but she says it. And of course, the fact that it was a former nanny was not the truth. My grandmother spoke French, and Princess Alice would often come up and talk with them about religion and Judaism in French. And I have to add that the youngest brother, Michel, had not left Greece with his other two brothers. He was meant to be in a good, safe place in an island, and it turned out that it was not the case. So he joined in, this was in September 43, sorry. And he joined the two ladies in the apartment. But they didn't dare tell Princess Alice that he had come. I'm not terribly sure why. So whenever the Princess Alice would come, he would have to hide in the kitchen and not move. And he was relatively young, in his late 20s. And so for him, it was quite difficult, but so little difficult compared to what was happening to the rest of the population and of the Jews. So it was, but there are anecdotes, I would say. And among the other things, obviously, Princess Alice, I mean, it was at the risk of her life, and she knew it, because if she had been found out, she would certainly have been killed. At one stage, the Gestapo came in. I think that their quarters was just opposite. They came into the residency and asked to see Princess Alice, and because probably they were suspicious that there were some Jews in her house, and she pretended that because of her deafness, she couldn't understand what they were what they were asking and talking about, and she managed to get rid of them, and they never came back. So this is the beautiful story here. The other three brothers, they left Greece through small fishing boats. They got on the Turkish coast, and from the Turkish coast they were flown over to Cairo, and they joined the Greek government in exile. My father was chief cabinet of justice and education. After the war, December 44 in Greece, there was a civil war immediately afterwards, and my grandmother and an aunt stayed in the residency for an extra few weeks until they could move into their apartment. Princess Alice kept in contact while they were still in Greece, and she would often come and visit them. So this, I mean, she was an extraordinary woman. She did it's unique in a way what she did. There are other people who have done it, and this is why Yad Vashem is so important today. But still, it's important to recognize her bravery. as I mentioned earlier on, she had wished to be, I think I mentioned it, I'm not 100% sure. She had wished to be buried in Jerusalem. Maybe I didn't say it. Oh, this is, yes, thank you, Monica. This is a photo of her in the 50s. When she had created her religious congregation, she went, this is a photo in Chicago where she was trying to raise funds for her congregation. She stayed in Athens in Greece until 67. I think it was on an island that she lived. And my parents, their last trip to Israel was in 1988. They were friends with Teddy Kollek, who was the first mayor of Jerusalem and who had founded the Jerusalem Foundation, which is a very important organization. And and Teddy mentioned that Princess Alice remains had finally been transferred to the Russian Church, Orthodox Church of St. Mary's Magdalene, which is on the Mount of Olives. And as her wish had been, she wanted to be next to her aunt Ella, who was the Grand Duchess of Russia, who had been also assassinated during the revolution. And Ella had been devoted to charity, and she was a role model for Princess Alice. So that's when Yad Vashem came in and asked my father if he would make the memorandum so that Princess Alice would be recognized as righteous among the nations. And so upon their return, my parents lived in Switzerland, and my father did write the memorandum, but did not send it to Yad Vashem. He knew of political situations, and he thought that the time had not yet come so that politically between Great Britain and Israel, the recognition could be received, or that it would take a very long time. And my father died in December 1990. The first thing that my mother did was to send off the report to Yad Vashem. And it did take another 3 years before the nomination could be, the award or the nomination, however one has to say it, could be bestowed on Princess Alice, first in Great Britain and then in 1994 at Yad Vashem. And this is the photo of Prince Philip giving, planting the tree on the alley of Remembrance. I want to add that there were also four other persons that received the recognition as righteous among the nations for helping the family. They were Anna Crisaki, Desmotenos Pouris, and Jean and François Van Vakaris from Greece. So during the ceremony at Yad Vashem, Prince Philip was accompanied by his sister, Princess Sophie, who is, it's the lady who is right next to the lady in yellow. Let me read out a small passage from Prince Philip's. Hey, that's my dog making a noise. Sorry, snoring. Prince Philip mentions, we did not know, and as far as we know, she never mentioned to anyone that she had given refuge to the Cohen family at a time when all Jews in Athens were in great danger of being arrested and transported to the concentration camps. In retrospect, this reticence may seem strange, but I suspect that it never occurred to her that her action was in any way special. She would have considered it to be a perfectly natural human reaction to fellows being in distress. You must also bear in mind that she had been well aware of the Nazi persecutions of the Jews for many years. In 2000, so when Prince Philip came to in 1994, it was on a non-official visit. In 2018, yes, in 2018, Prince William made the first official visit to Israel. And I was invited, and I took along with me my young, small cousin, Philippe Cohen, with me. And we met with Prince William, and we were able once again to express our eternal reconnaissance.
Gratitude?
Sorry?
Gratitude?
Gratitude, yes, thank you, to Princess Alice and to her descendants. And I went to the Mount of Olives, to the Russian church, and here we see that I'm by her casket, I think you say, and writing in the visitor's book. We have another photo. This is it. The test of our eternal gratitude to Princess Alice. So this is the story of my father's family. It's a beautiful story, and it's an important one that needs to be told and remembered. After the war, there was in Greece, there was the Civil War. And my father became the director for Northern Greece of the Joint Distribution Committee, GDC. And during that period, he also, because he knew very well the political field environment, he was not alone, but he was the cheville ouvrière. I never know how to say that in English. He did all the paperwork and the thinking of to obtain a special law for which we have got next. It's the next slide, please.
If you give me a minute, I'm just encouraging people to start typing in their questions. Okay, hold on.
Yes. No, please.
There we go.
Yes, I think it's still be cut. For me, it's cut, but
Fine. It really is fine.
Yes, thank you. And this is it's the first law of its kind And it's a law that comes from 1946, whereby the belongings, the fortunes of the Jews that the heirless fortunes of the Jews that had not returned from the camps, that instead of going to the Greek government, it would go to a special body that was to be created for the rehabilitation of the Greek Jews. This is an extremely important law that was passed during the Civil War, and is signed by Sophoulis, the Sophoulis I mentioned before that had become the prime minister then. And it's a law that has been used later on for the other European countries, but much, much later on. So with this, I end the first part, or the main part of my presentation. My parents met I forgot to say, my parents met in 1947 in, some of you might know of, Zelisberg Conference, which was an international emergency conference to combat anti-Semitism. It was a Christian Jew conference, which is known to quite a few people as being an important conference, although it might not have come up with the best. I mean, it was to try and understand the anti-Semitism and how to, in the various countries, find ways to combat it. But still, it's known as an important. Anyway, this ends that part. I'm not used to talk about my work. I don't have an arts background. I worked in the hotel business mainly, and I also worked in the last years of my father with him. I took an early retirement in 2012, and I had always done, or when I was a young adult, photography, and so I picked up photography again. But I wanted to, and I loved glass, and I wanted to include photography in glass. Photography is writing with light, and the beginning of photography was on glass plates. So I was very naive, and I thought that with the new technologies, it was going to be very easy to include photography in glass. It took a few years to not to master it, but to find out how to. I was very lucky to find a glass community, an international glass community, and an artist who has given me their knowledge and has helped me to create my work. The piece that you're seeing here is close-up shot. I think it's a good introduction between what I have just told you and the rest of my work. as it talks about the terrible fate of migrants that are fleeing wars or persecution or violence or discrimination or just poverty and trying to cross the Mediterranean since 2000, since year 2000 till now. It's the horror of statistics. It's probably over 50,000 people who have disappeared in those waters, and most of them anonymously. And unfortunately, it's not stopping at all, because from the beginning of this year, it's over 2,000 people who have perished. This piece will be, I will have an exhibition at the end of this year, a personal exhibition in a small town near where I live, and this piece will be exhibited. Now, am I forgetting to say this? Shall we get on to the next slide, please? Okay. I wanted to, this in fact is the very first piece that I have made where photography is included in glass. When I got Monica's invitation, I really felt that I was not, I didn't have enough material to talk about my work, for which a lot of it is a work in progress. But in fact, I did find that there is a thread to all the work that I do, whether it is photography or photography in glass or just glass pieces. There's a lot about honoring the memory. And it's a lot also about the theme of the broad term of voyage, voyage, travel, not travel, but really voyage, if that's the correct pronunciation in English. This is a very short video.
Yes, shall I try?
Yes, please, please. And that's the reason why I wanted photography in glass, because it comes to life. I did it very short so that we can run it again if one wanted, but because depending on how the light comes in or what's behind, or it will give us completely different atmospheres. And glass can be touched. But photography you cannot touch. So we can move on to the. I also wanted to, yes. This photograph I took, in fact, many years ago. And when I started working in glass, it was one of the first ones again that I have included. The text that's in it is a text that I took from Edith Stein. And it says something like, you have conducted me along a long path, obscure and stony. Many times my forces failed me. It's by the old railway station of Bobigny, which is just outside of Paris, and from where the death camps, trains took the Jews to the concentration camps. it's another voyage. Uh, the photography as photography is a way of keeping trace of an instant, but by putting it in glass, as I said before, it gives it life, and I think really this is what has been my credo, or really what I wanted to continue doing. When my mother passed away, I inherited emotionally charged, like most of us do, objects and a lot of documents and a lot of photographies. And that's when I realized that I had no one to whom I would transmit these objects that had been passed from generation to generation. And so somehow I felt I had a responsibility of doing something with them. And that's when I started creating this body of work, giving life to inherited objects. And here you have a piece of pâte de verre. It's a letter from my father where he mentions that he has met his wife to be, to his family. And next to it is like a mirror, and inside the mirror is the photo of my mother. Shall we go to the next photograph? Identity. What's interesting here is that, in fact, this was test piece, and it took me a while to realize, because I had done something at the back, and because the document was, the way I had done it was not interesting. In fact, I had not had the intention, but I think that subconsciously, this is where it comes. The subconscious knew what I was doing, and in fact, it's how do you say, ombre chinoise?
China ink?
No. You see the image behind, right? As
like a palimpsest, maybe in English.
Yes, if you want, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's another document. We can go to the next one. In memoria, so objects that inherited and in which I've included photographs. And the next one, yes, another type of pâte de verre piece. Why do I use glass? I think that some of its properties and qualities is it's very resilient, it's fragile, it can be delicate, it's sensual, it's great to touch, it has body, it's malleable because I make it with my hands. These are pieces that are really created with my hands, and they're all characteristics of the human being. Voila. Shall we go on to the next one? Now, the question is also, why do we keep certain objects and not other objects? And in the end, I think all of us have these questions, and why some of them are really emotionally charged. We have another one. This was a piece that broke, but it's not an issue. I kept a fragment of it. And yes, another piece, let's say, and we have another one maybe. Slightly different, but it's a paperweight, or can be a paperweight, and its outside structure is like skin. We also talk of skin of glass. And we maybe have another one. This, in fact, my pieces take a very long time to be made. Some of them, I don't draw. I don't know how to hold a pen, and so I do take notes. But once I get down to working with my hands, things can come out. And it's only once I had made these pieces that I realized what I had made. And I call this the couple. Obviously, it's only a photo, so that's quite difficult, but if you could see it turning around and the light coming from different angles, one would understand better why I call it the couple. And the last piece, so this is the book that I made, I think in 2018. It's called Le Livre du Souvenir, Remembrance book. And the next, we have a video here, which I took while it was in an exhibition. The tzaddik of the family from my mother's side. When I started this body of work, I thought it would give them life, and while I was around, or until, but I never suspected or expected that it would be bought by a museum and that it would it would have a much longer life, or much longer permanency. The Musée Niepce was the inventor of photography, and he was born in Chalon-sur-Saône, and they have a very important collection of old photography and also contemporary. The next, yes, these are close-ups of, it's like paper. And okay, yes, I wanted to finish with a photograph because I haven't shown any photography at all. I think it's I can't read completely what is written because I don't have it full. It's also cut down.
Would you like me to? Shall
yes,
I read
please,
that?
please.
Okay, so it's from the famous photographer Elliot Erwitt. For me, photography is the art of observation. It's about finding something interesting in an ordinary place. It doesn't have much to do with the things you see, but it has everything to do with the way you see them.
Yes, and I fell on that saying. I think it really does fit very well. And with this, nearly I end my talk. Yes.
Yes, shall we?
Yes, we invite.
Okay, all right.
I've been informed by friends and by her lady-in-waiting about the plight of Mrs. Cohen and her young daughter. The princess decided to offer offer her hospitality to the two ladies. In fact, to hide them in her home, and despite the danger this entailed. The princess put a small two-room apartment on the 3rd floor at the disposal of Mrs. Cohen and her daughter. It was thanks to the courageous rescue of Princess Alice that the members of the Cohen family were saved. The members of the Cohen family left the residence 3 weeks after liberation, aware that by virtue of the princess's generosity and bravery had spared them from the Nazis. The great-granddaughter of Rachel Cohen, Evy Cohen, said this 2 years ago. My family would not exist without the courageous acts of Princess Alice. Her story of incredible courage must keep being told in her memory. My generation, the past generation, and the future generation are and will eternally be grateful to his great aunt, Princess Alice, for the great act of bravery, risking her own life to take in a family in need.
Shall I stop? Let me stop sharing. Thank you so much, Evy. That was a tremendously moving tribute to Princess Alice, of course, and that's important. But it was also, I think, you know, what you were talking about in relation to your own work, also illuminating, moving. And I would personally, I'm sure everybody else will agree, I would love to see more, particularly of your photography, I have to say, just to end with that one image is very, very tantalizing. Can I don't know, I've been inviting people to ask questions. I'm not, let me just check if any more have come in. I would be surprised if there weren't any, but people are sometimes a little bit shy. We've got somebody who wants to know about the recording. I will say straight away, yes, we have recorded the event and the recording will be uploaded within the week, possibly earlier, onto the Insiders Outsiders YouTube channel, and also onto the AJR's YouTube channel. So yes, there will be plenty of opportunities to revisit it or to tell your friends about it. Just a very appreciative comment from somebody about your house, the house pieces, abandoned places, but full of intimations of vanished life. Yes, indeed, indeed. I have a question apropos glass. You know, you mentioned the work where the glass broke accidentally and you kept it as it was. Have you ever been tempted to exploit the symbolic and also the creative potential of broken glass, which of course in terms of Jewish history has huge significance? Yeah.
Yes, I have. I have pieces that are waiting.
Ah, okay.
I take a very long time to make a piece.
Do you want to tell us about anything else that's in store or in progress, or are you reluctant?
No, I have this exhibition at the end of the year, so I have to start making quite a lot. There is you call mortar the mortar, the thing where you do the.
Oh yes, a pestle and mortar. Do you mean? Yes, yes.
Many years ago, I was in London just for 48 hours, and I went to the Jewish Museum, and I think I saw an exhibition where there was mortars. And I hadn't realized until then that it was one of the objects that families would take with them, one of the most important objects that they would take along with them on their programs or travels, and for some reason I had taken without the knowledge the mortar that we had in the family. So I will try and make something out of that.
Interesting. A question about where you've mostly lived, which I think is quite a complicated story, but actually I was also going to ask you what links you and your generation have with Greece. Have you, anyway, tell us.
I don't have a family in Greece. I did try and I lived in Greece for about a year working. But as I was working, I would speak English. And although I have a facility to learn languages, not grammatically, Greek was really very difficult for me.
Yeah.
At home, we didn't speak Greek. And so I don't have family now, but through Facebook, I have found someone who is very interested in Jewish history from Trikala, and who is going to help me know more about my family.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. I have lived in Switzerland, I have lived in France, I have lived in England. Where else? Oh, that's about it.
Very good. Could you tell us, I realize that time is drawing on, but tell us briefly, you said almost en passant, in passing, of 3 or 4 other Greeks who helped your family. And,
Yes.
Yes, Princess Alice, we know about her, but I think actually we need to pay homage also, don't we, to the less high-profile figures, shall we say, who did.
And it's important. I mean, it is extremely important, and this is why I did mention it, because it's only through mentioning the names, don't we, that they are remembered and keep alive in our minds. Anna Krisaki was so it's part of the Krisaki family that hid my family. Desmodin Pouris, I understand that she was well introduced with Princess Alice, and she was the go-between to give the news from the ladies that were staying in the palace, that not in the palace, it was the residency, and my father and his brothers who were in Egypt, and that's how also the Michel moved in. And I am not terribly sure. I don't have the of Jean and François, the couple, unless they were brothers, Van Vakaris. I don't know exactly what their, how they helped, but they certainly have helped. I don't have those documents, but it's important to remember them too.
Absolutely. All right, are there really no more questions or comments? I find that very hard to believe. All right, so maybe we'll draw things to a close. As I say, you can just remind us the website. I know it's easy, I think, to find simply by typing in Evy Cohen artist, but you want to just give us the exact, what do you call it? I can't even think in English, but the actual website? Is it evycohen.com simply?
Yes, oh yes, yes. We forgot to put up the, there's a very last slide with various...
Oh, indeed. Do you want me to go back to that? I could do, shall I do that quickly?
Yes, so that it's in the video.
All right.
So it somehow put it in the video.
Indeed.
I forgot to mention that my father, important archives, I have handed them over to yes, that's the one, to the CAHJP, which is the center, the history of the Jewish people. They are based in Jerusalem, and all those documents have been scanned and they are available for study. So yes, I can be contacted easily through my website.
Very good.
And I live in a beautiful countryside, which is only 2 hours outside of Paris, in Le Perche.
With, I believe, Airbnb or a sort of a possibility of coming to stay. So you might be, you might be inundated. It does look absolutely gorgeous, particularly at the moment.
Monica, thank you very much for having invited me.
It's a pleasure.
I was really quite afraid of giving this talk, but it's a great opportunity.
I'm delighted, and I will say, perhaps, sort of tactlessly, that Evy was indeed quite reluctant at first. She wasn't sure what she might say about the links between that history and her work, but I think they are indeed very, very evident. Thank you very much, Evy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Just to repeat, the event has been recorded, will be uploaded onto both the Insiders Outsiders and the AJR YouTube channel. And also, if you're interested in pursuing this theme of second and indeed, as I say, third generation voices talking about the complex relationship with family histories, check out the What's On section of the Insiders Outsiders Festival.org website. There is more to come in June. In fact, to coincide with Refugee Week in the UK, we have an annual Refugee Week, and we have various good meaty events also happening then, and many other things besides. Good, so fine. Goodbye, everyone. Be well, and thank you again, Evy, so very much. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.